Kaale, and welcome to my channel. From reading the title, you already have an idea what we're going to talk about today. I kind of wanted to make this video to first off introduce myself and tell you guys the story of how I got to this place. So, like I said, reading the title, you know that I am a person who is one in 100 women that have suffered from recurrent miscarriage. And recurrent miscarriage is when a woman miscarries 3 or more consecutive times. I have just miscarried for the 3rd time in the past year. It's a topic that is very hard to talk about, and that's why I'm talking about it. I am a firm believer that if I can use my struggle to help somebody else, why not do it? And that is why I'm here today. This is why I'm making this channel, so that hopefully you that are at home watching me, you may have a similar story to me, or you know, anything kind of similar to me, and you're just looking for somebody to be like, hey, you know, look at this person, they're going through the same thing that I am, and you know, kind of relate. And I really want to build a community of people so that we can all understand each other, lift each other up, and help each other as much as we can, because it's such a difficult thing to go through, in my opinion, and really you don't know what it's like until you've been through it, you know? And that's kind of the whole purpose of this channel. I gonna tell you guys a little bit, or not a little bit, basically tell you guys my story here in a minute. But the reason I'm starting this is because, you know, a lot of things are hopefully gonna happen moving forward, and I really wanted to document and share all of my experiences and have you guys come with me on this journey. So going back to the beginning, or the even pre-beginning of the situation, I was married to my husband in 2016, and we decided on 2017 that we were going to start trying to have a baby. And it took us a while. He's in the military, so he had deployments and stuff, so you know, months that weren't accounted for, but it took us about 6 months of trying to conceive our first child. And it was something that I didn't expect it to happen. It was kind of a surprise to me, and it was an overall pretty good pregnancy. Everything was great. It was healthy overall. Like, I didn't have complications until I reached my 3rd trimester, and a lot of things kind of started popping up. And I know it's hard to, you know, if you haven't had a child yet, hear about these experiences, but it's a very important part of my story. I come to find out now, so that's why I'm putting it in here. So in my 3rd trimester, we discovered that my baby was measuring small, and they were like, okay, you know, let's do a repeat ultrasound. Let's see if this was a fluke thing or if it's actually a consistent thing. And it ended up being a consistent thing, which meant that I would have to go in for like twice weekly visits, ultrasounds and monitoring, because my baby was measuring 2 weeks behind. In that whole process as well, I get diagnosed with preeclampsia, and it was kind of a whirlwind thing. My blood pressure had kind of been creeping up slightly, not anything to be concerned of until this point. I remember I went to the doctor for a normal prenatal visit, and they sent me to labor and delivery because they wanted to keep me there and see what was going to happen, because my blood pressure was so high. They're like, if it goes down, then you can go home. But they gave me a urine analysis test to take home, and I did. Thank God it went down. They gave me the container for me to, you know, do my thing, and I brought it the next day, and I went to my doctor's office. While I was there, they received me with the news of my results, and they're like, hey, your test results came back, you have preeclampsia, you need to go to the hospital right now, and you're not leaving the hospital until you have a baby. And that was a shock, because I was exactly 4 weeks from my due date, so a whole month early. And it was a pretty scary experience, but thankfully everything was good, and I had my baby and she was there, beautiful and great. And one thing, which is a key player in this situation now, was that they noticed that my placenta was very, very small compared to normal placentas. So I heard, I had never had a baby before, so I didn't know. And I remember the nurses passing a bucket with my placenta around the room saying, oh my gosh, it's so tiny, it's so little. And I never got to see it in person, because I was on a lot of medication, so I wasn't really like paying attention to that. I just wanted to like hold my baby, and that was a big thing. And I remember, they explained to me that that's why she was small, because my placenta, for whatever reason, stopped developing. It stopped, so it stopped feeding her what she needed. And other than that, when I was getting, cleaned out, TMI for those who are a little squeamish, but after you give birth, you kind of get cleaned out, and the doctor helps get everything out from in there to avoid, clotting and complications later. And I remember it was taking a really long time, and my husband was like, is everything okay? And the doctor said that I had an abnormal amount of clotting, which I didn't pay too much attention to. I just figured, I don't know, I clot a lot during my periods. Maybe that's just, I don't know, it's just a thing. So pause on that. A few months before my daughter's first birthday, we decided that we wanted to start trying for baby number 2. And glory be to God, it happened on our first try. We were actually out of town. We were visiting our family back home, and it's like 2 flights that we had to take to go back home, so we weren't anywhere near our home. And I remember being so excited. We told our parents, we told our siblings, and it was like so exciting, like, oh my gosh, we're having another baby. And literally a few days after that, the day that I was supposed to fly to Orlando to meet up with my sister to go to Disney together, I started miscarrying. I started bleeding, and it was a devastating feeling. I literally cried and just kind of slept the whole rest of the day, because I physically could not handle like the emotional pain I was going through. And my husband woke me up and he was like, hey, we gotta go to the airport, we gotta go. And that's what it was. And I had to go through that whole physical experience at Disney World. We had already, booked the whole trip. And it was a very, very trying time. And that was, to give you guys a perspective, that was May of 2019. After that, we were like, okay, well, let's see if it happens. Let's see if, that was just something that just happened this time, but let's try again and we'll have a baby. So fast forward to my daughter's actual birthday. The day before her birthday was her birthday party, and I went to Walmart to get some donuts and some stuff for the snack table, and I decided to buy a couple pregnancy tests. And I went to the bathroom at Walmart because I didn't want my husband to know, and like friends of mine were at the house like helping me set up, and I was like, okay, let me just take the test. And I took it and I looked at it and it was positive. And I remember just like, trying to control my emotions as much as I could until I got to the car. And I got to the car and I looked at the test and it was so positive, and I started bawling my eyes out, happy tears and scared tears, because obviously I had just been through the situation. Once you've been through it once, it's kind of a recurrent fear for me. I was so nervous and I was like, God, please don't let this happen again. But I was so happy and so grateful, and I remember just sitting there and just thanking God for this baby and just saying like, oh my gosh, like it's happening, now. And I went and I told one of my friends, And I told my husband because I couldn't like contain the excitement. And then I remember just having, you know, being in the party and just like wanting to tell everybody, but I was like, you know, I was like, it's not the time. So I just went about my day. And then after that, I went to the doctor, got the pregnancy confirmed, and you know, just kept being pregnant until my first appointment, which was supposed to be at 8 weeks. But around the 6-week mark, I started having pain on my left side, and I was kind of concerned, and I called the doctor, and they told me just drink some water, you know, just hydrate, take, you know, sleep maybe, and hopefully it'll go away. And it did. But I ended up going into the office anyway. They were like, just come in, let's just take a look at you. And they decided to take some HCG levels, so they took my blood, and the doctor was like, okay, come in 2 days after, 2 days, you know, after today, and we'll check in again to make sure that everything's normal. And I was like, okay. By then I went home, the pain was gone, nothing was happening, and I was like, okay. I was not concerned about it at all. I was like, okay. So 2 days go by, I go and get my blood drawn again, and I called the doctor because he told me to call him to let him know when I went to the lab, and I did, and he was like, okay, I'll call you back as soon as I have the results. And I remember an hour went by, hour and a half went by, and he wasn't calling me, and I was like, I don't know if it's a good thing, you know, maybe everything's fine and he didn't feel the need to call, or maybe something's wrong. And I started like freaking out a little bit. Ultimately, he calls me, he's like, hey, so your levels did not move, they didn't drop and they didn't go up. And he was like, do you know what that means? And I'm like, no, I do not. And he was like, well, we think that you might be having an ectopic pregnancy. And I immediately start freaking out, and he was like, you know, but we can tell that it's not a viable pregnancy. I start crying. He was like, I need you to come to the hospital right now because I want to do some ultrasounds and check to see that that's not the case. So I called my husband at work, sobbing, freaking out, like, I need to go to the hospital, you need to come with me. And thank God he made it home, and we went to the hospital, and they did some ultrasounds, and something was not right. They couldn't find the baby. Like, my uterus looked pregnant, everything looked pregnant, but they couldn't find the baby. So at that point, I get taken to the like OR room to do an emergency DNC. And for those of you who don't know, a DNC is a procedure where they basically clean out after like a miscarriage or some other situation. They clean out your uterus and, you know, get everything out. And so they went in and did that. And when I woke up, I remember he told me that, you know, the test results were gonna come back in a couple of days and stuff like that. And honestly, thank God I was so medicated because I was so devastated. I remember bits and pieces of waking up from the procedure and going home and eating, and a few of my friends came over and they just sat there with me, and I was just like crying and, you know, going through the whole motions of a miscarriage, you know. And then the doctor called me a few days later and basically concluded that it was a miscarriage. After that, we decided to wait a while because it was, you know, very overwhelming. We both, my husband and I, needed time to heal from that situation, and we took some time off. We moved and, you know, a few months ago we decided, I think it's time, you know, to try again. And we decided that we were gonna start trying again, and we did, and it happened first try. You know, it was completely, part of me knew, because, you know, after being pregnant a few times, you kind of notice things, and I started being very, very tired, and which was very different for me because with my pregnancy with my daughter, it was like the complete opposite, but I knew it was things that weren't normal for me. And I ended up taking a test. It was positive. And immediately again started crying. I was like, first of all, I was in shock. I didn't believe it. And then a few minutes after, it kind of sank in and I started crying, and I was like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. And I didn't even want to tell our family or anything like that. I ended up telling my mom because I was having like really bad sciatic nerve pain, because I have a herniated disc, which makes me even more likely to have sciatic nerve pain even if I'm not pregnant. So I started having really bad pain and stuff. They were keeping a close eye on me with this pregnancy, because I went to the ER because of that pain, and they referred me to the doctor. And I had an ultrasound done at 4 weeks at the hospital, didn't see anything. At 5 weeks at the doctor's office, and they saw the gestational sac but no yolk sac, which would be the baby. And then at 6 weeks, and there was a little tiny baby with a little tiny heartbeat. And I came home that day so, like, I was walking on air. I literally was walking on air. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, did this actually happen? Because I got to a point where I never had gotten with my past 2 pregnancies. And I was like, this is it. You know, this means that, you know, we're on the right track. Things are going to be fine. Things are going to be great. And, you know, I was just taking it easy. And the doctor had noticed in my 5-week ultrasound that there was a little bit of blood around the gestational sac. And he was like, that, you know, could mean something, could not mean anything. So we just took it as, let's just be cautious. So I was very cautious, you know, not overly exerting myself, you know, just trying to, you know, do my regular things, but not go crazy. Fast forward a couple weeks to where I was about to hit my 8-week mark. I started spotting. There was a little bit of brown spotting. I was like, it's probably no cause for concern. If, you know, they typically say if it's brown, it's old. It doesn't really mean anything. And that's what I did, and it stopped. And then exactly a week later, well, I was like at 7 weeks, and then at around 8 weeks, a little more brown spotting came, but this time there was a little bit of red on there. So I decided to go to the ER, and I was just like, I just need to know, you know, I need to know that my baby's okay, you know, could be nothing, let me just go and see. And I went and I got some ultrasounds done, and you know, but I wait until the radiologist could come in and tell me the results. And I don't know if it's just women's intuition or what, but I had a bad feeling, and I kind of already knew what she was gonna say. And evidently she comes in and she tells me that my baby no longer had a heartbeat, and that was still measuring 6 weeks when I was supposed to be 8 weeks along. I tried to stay as calm as possible, and you know, she gave me her apologies, and I was like, you know, I understand. I tried to keep it together. And then she left the room, and I texted my husband and I told him. And I called my best friend, and I started bawling my eyes out. And at that point, the nurse comes in to take my vitals again to discharge me so that I can go home. You know, I hung up the phone, and I was just trying to, again, keep it together as best as I could. And they gave me my papers, and I left. And it was the only way I can describe the feeling of walking out of the hospital by myself after getting that news. It's like, you know, when you see in movies, you know, somebody coming out from like the rubble and like the explosions and stuff like that, and they're just like walking out and away from it. That's the only way I can like describe the feeling that I had that was like going on. I got home, And I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried some more, and you know, my husband comforted me as best as, you know, he could, and I tried to comfort him because obviously he's going through the situation with me. So after that, I go to my LB, get it confirmed that indeed I had miscarried, and then it was just a waiting game to see if my body did what it was supposed to do in that situation. And it took a while, but it did. I officially miscarried on April 26, 2020. And here I am today. Today is May 6th. And I'm as okay as one can be, and I credit that to God giving me the strength to go through these situations. I do have a wonderful support system. My husband has been amazing, and my close friends that know about it have also been amazing, and my parents as well. So I'm super thankful for them. But it's gotten now to the point where I've gotten diagnosed with recurrent miscarriages, and now it's the point where my doctor was like, I think we should look into this and try and see what is the cause, because now it's like, okay, there has to be a cause for this, and that's where we're at right now. I went to the doctor the other day, and we got our first vials of blood drawn for the chromosome test to make sure that there's no like chromosomal abnormalities with me or my husband. We will get the results for like a month, like 4 weeks from now. But it is the first step to hopefully finding a cause, and hopefully that cause, you know, having a possible treatment so that we can ultimately have a child. And it's gonna be a long road ahead, but like I said, I want to document it. And if you guys want to see how the process is for me, what goes on, you know, what testing I get done, what my diagnosis is if I get one, and I would love for you guys to keep watching and stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so that way you can go on this journey with me. I'm also going to link my Instagram down below. I decided to create an Instagram to build a community of women who have suffered through a miscarriage or multiple miscarriages. I'm trying to make a safe space to where it's an open conversation so that everybody can feel like they can relate to somebody else, and that there is hope, and that there is people that understand, because it is a very isolating thing, and it is something that in society it's always been a very taboo topic, and something that a lot of women get shamed for. And you know, I'm here to tell you that you are an amazing woman, and nothing makes you any less of a woman. If you're having trouble conceiving, if you have had miscarriages, that doesn't make you anything less than the next person. And that I'm here for you, and that I'm praying for you, and I give you a big virtual hug, and I hope that we can all get through all of this together. But yeah, I love you guys, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye.